Welcome to Mystic Bloom, the podcast where modern mysticism meets embodied spirituality. I'm your host, Jenny Scholl, here to help women reclaim their sacred power, explore feminine faith, and align with divine wisdom. Together, we'll dive into spirituality, sacred embodiment, and the art of living in flow with your truth and connecting with the divine in your way. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, loves. I cannot wait for y'all to listen to this episode. We dive into some seriously juicy topics like rage as sacred force, womb wisdom and healing, reclaiming feminine power, and how embodiment connects us to God. This conversation is raw, it's real, and it's so needed, especially for women on the path of reclaiming their bodies and their spiritual connection. I'm just so excited for you all to listen, but first, let me properly introduce Sarah Lane. As the creatrix of BreathWork, Sarah Lane guides mystics and empaths into deeper embodiment and sovereignty through breathwork, movement, and energy work. With extensive training in breathwork, Reiki, yoga, and somatic coaching, Sarah offers a grounded, trauma-sensitive space to alchemize emotions and reconnect with the body. She leads humans into sovereignty and empowerment as they co-create a new paradigm of heart-centered consciousness. A keeper of womb wisdom, Sarah is passionate about helping others reclaim their sexual sovereignty and connect to the sacredness of their bodies. She has guided thousands through transformational journeys and facilitated BreathWork locally and at festivals like Same But Different. Also known as DJ Namaslane, her ecstatic dance invites you to worship at the altar of your body temple. Welcome to this episode. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Let's go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Mystic Bloom. I am here with one of my dear friends, Sarah Lane. Sarah, thank you for coming on today.
It's my pleasure, Jenny. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I was so excited. One of the first people I thought of actually when I started Mystic Bloom was you. And I was like, oh, there's just like these beautiful conversations that we have. Sarah's a friend of mine here in Encinitas in San Diego. We got to be housemates for a little while and be able to drop in and feel each other's energy. And the conversations that we get to have are just so on my heart that I want all women to be able to have. So I'm very excited that you are here with me today. And for those listening, Sarah is, gosh, you have such like a wide breadth of skill sets, from DJing to somatics to leading people through breathwork, which I definitely want to talk about, and your rage retreats. So I'd love to just start off maybe on like what got you into this journey? What got you into the whole journey of exploring your body, exploring spirituality to kind of where you are today?
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for speaking to all the many things that we can play with and dive into today. And really, two major things brought me into the world of embodiment and the spiritual journey. The first thing, like most people, is love and failed relationship and trying to understand, why do I keep attracting these emotionally unavailable partners? What am I, like, I must be the common denominator here. What's my role in these relationships and what am I responsible for? And diving deep into all of that, which led me down a rabbit hole into my childhood trauma and understanding how my parents' divorce impacted me so deeply. When my father left, I was 5 years old, and my mom got sole custody of myself and my two brothers. And my 5-year-old self, bless her heart, she made all kinds of stories around what that meant. For example, I'm not lovable. And if my father didn't stick around, then I must not be worthy of a man's love. I must not be deserving. I must not be cared for and provided for. So there was that deep, deep masculine wounding that stuck with me for so many years. And I was actually listening to a podcast that opened my eyes and ears to understanding the patterns that were playing out in my relational dynamics. And that was that I was attempting to heal the wound of my father and my abandonment trauma through relationship. And so naturally, I was attracting similar partners to try to heal that wound.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very common, now, it's like you don't know what you don't know until you know. But once you see a pattern like that, I expect it was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah. I remember the exact moment I was driving in my car and had the podcast on. And as soon as she said the words, like she said this statement of we attract the partners that mirror back our most influential and painful relationships in childhood. And I just started sobbing, tears of truth, tears of remembrance, tears of relief also, having found a piece of the puzzle and an answer. Oh, that explains it. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, now I have something to work with and I can heal this and I can grow rather than running around in a 1,000 different directions trying to figure out what was happening and what was going on. And so after leaving the most toxic relationship I was in, I left that relationship in 2016. I went on a period of self-discovery and celibacy and dating myself and trying to understand more of who I am. And that led me into womb healing, yoni healing, tantra, embodiment practices. While at the same time, and this is the second aspect, the same time I was also attempting to heal from amenorrhea, which is absence of period. So I didn't have a period for 10 years.
Whoa.
Partly due to hormonal birth control, partly due to the fact that I was completely suppressing my feminine energy and the flow, the life force and flow in my body. And partly due to the fact that this is my soul's curriculum to learn, as illnesses and sickness and injuries often are here to wake us up. That was a part of my awakening, was deeply understanding how the menstrual cycle works, how my womb is connected to all of life and God and Mother Earth and the original mother, and how that creation energy that lives within us, I would never have been able to tap into that had I not been invited into it through the pain and disconnection from it. That disconnection that led to connection. I had to swing the pendulum to the other side.
Wow. So kind of at the same time, you were going through a big kind of trauma awareness, maybe part energetic, part trauma healing, inner child work, and physicality of reconnecting back into your body.
Yeah, exactly. And I had been on a path of meditation and yoga, and I was teaching yoga and eventually got Reiki attuned. And even through all of those practices that I still practice now, they were very much focused on ascension and disconnection from the body, disconnection from desire, disconnection from the senses. And it's about going inward, which I think is an integral part of the spiritual journey. And it's important, and it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. And so getting deeper into the body and specifically descending into the womb space was where I actually found those deeper, darker parts of myself that I got to face off with, and am still facing off with all of the time, and probably will be until I transition to the next phase of my soul's journey.
It's so beautiful. And what an invitation, right? Saying that perhaps without having a period for 10 years, like, would you have really connected in that way? Because there's so many women who are taught so many different things about their periods, about their bodies, about this womb space. And we've forgotten how sacred it is.
Mm.
And it's something that when we're young, maybe we're taught to hide, right? That we're bleeding, or we just kind of stuff it up and go along with our day. And like we're taught to like pretend it's not happening.
Mm.
And it's such a big shift and revelation when you do have the time to connect to your body, to connect to your womb, to connect to this life force that's not only within you, but connects us with the whole lineage of women, of this ability to birth, whether we in our lifetimes will physically birth children. It's that same life force energy that continually creates and births things into the world.
Yes, exactly. Especially when that womb center is connected with our heart, because we can tap into the love and compassion for all beings in our heart, connecting to self-love, connecting to our heart's desires. And then when we merge that with the womb wisdom and we have this heart-womb connection, that's when we're able to birth the creations into this physical world that will create more life and sustain it, and will be aligned with love and compassion and our true heart's desires, therefore creating a new earth and a new way of being and a new way of relating, rather than only creating from, let's say, the ego desire that, wants more money or bigger house or bigger car. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but really tapping into the heart's desire, running that through the womb, having them communicate in a way that allows you to birth that creativity into the world. Like you starting this podcast is probably such a beautiful creation of like heart-womb connection, whether you're aware of it or not. But I can feel the deep-rooted womb wisdom and the feminine wisdom that's shared through this podcast and through you, Jenny, as the vessel, as the channel. And then being able to give that and expand your love and expand the love for the feminine and the love for spirit, God, source, creator. So having that womb heart connection is, I think it's a part of mastering our feminine embodiment.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that, because I feel I can remember like where I was when I could feel my womb again. And I just didn't realize that for most of my life, I kind of was walking around very disconnected from it. And the opening of feeling, of sensation, energy, of sexuality, of pleasure streams, like all of these things, I was like, oh my goodness. Had that had not happened, and I was guided through that process with a very beautiful and skilled teacher, but had that not happened, I may have walked around like in a woman's body, but not fully feeling like the width and the expansiveness and the beauty and the pleasure of being in a woman's body. And it had me like, like there on this one hand was like ecstasy and oh my goodness, and I'm so grateful. And then on the other hand was also a lot of grief of, wow, like, why wasn't I taught this? And then realizing that the women who raised me in to no fault of their own weren't taught this. And like my grandmother wasn't taught this, and her mother wasn't taught this, right? And it was like, wow, like how far back does this go? And being reconnected to women in that sense of really kind of going through of like, oh, we are sacred vessels with this intuitive wisdom. And yeah, all the emotions at once.
That grief.
That it was lost at the joy that it's been reclaimed.
Yes, that grief is so real. And the tears that flow that are literally tears of remembrance. And in breathwork, we call it the twerk cry. Like we're twerking and we're crying. Because we're remembering, because we're grieving all the times that we didn't have the freedom and sovereignty to shake our ass and feel liberated in our bodies and feel turned on, not for anyone else, but just for you.
Yes.
And to remember that your pleasure and your body is for you. It's not for anyone else unless you want to share it with someone. That's That's your sovereign choice. But as women, we're programmed to believe that our bodies, our pleasure, our beauty are for everyone else to enjoy except for ourselves. And God forbid we are caught enjoying our own bodies and enjoying our own beauty and appreciating the beauty of other women. But we're programmed from such a young age to compare, to be jealous, to bring each other down, because if her light is shining bright, then mine cannot shine bright. And that's the story. And then also there's the programming around over-sexualizing the woman's body, and that if we're twerking, it somehow means we're asking or begging for sexual attention or unwanted male gaze. And so when I started offering this practice of breath twerk, it was originally for women, and then I actually started expanding it to all genders. And seeing the way that that changes the dynamic in the space. And oh my goodness, it has a huge impact.
Oh, that's so interesting. I've only ever done it with you with all women.
Yeah.
Yeah. After those, I'd love you to explain breath twerk a little more, because every time I tell someone, I'm like, oh, I'm going to breath twerk, they repeat it back to me. They go, breath twerk? And they always say it like that.
Did I hear you right? Yes. Yes.
And twerk. Yes. And I have my explanation of it, but I would love if you just kind of explain the modality and like how it came to be. Yeah.
So breathwork is a somatic healing and dance journey designed to awaken your sexual sovereignty. We start with about 20 minutes of breath work, and then that leads into about 20 to 30 minutes of dance, twerking, primal embodiment, vocal toning, and just getting wild. It's really all about unleashing that wild woman within, unleashing the dragon, unleashing the woman who isn't afraid to say no, isn't afraid to assert her boundaries, isn't afraid to be sexy and turned on. And in order for us to embrace those energies out in the real world, we have to practice them first in safe containers, whether that be you dancing in the mirror or with your close girlfriends, or in a space like breathwork where we can come together and share and express and heal. Because when we combine these powerful modalities of breathwork and twerking, we're literally shaking out the stored traumatic memories in the cells, and especially in the lower chakras. For example, the root chakra is where we need to feel safety, and we need to remember that we have a right to exist in the world, that we have a right to be here, we have a right to take up space, we have a right to have our physical needs met. And the root chakra can also hold on to rage. So honoring our sacred rage and anger, and honoring the parts of ourselves that perhaps had boundary violations or our needs weren't being met. And so whenever we feel anger or rage, it's usually because a boundary has been crossed or a need is not being met. So breathwork, although it can be super fun and playful, it can also get really intense and allow us to go there, literally just go into the rage, the screaming, the yelling, the punching a pillow, the stomping our feet, and allowing that rage to have a place to go.
Which is so important. We are lucky to be in a community that really understands the need for safe containers for expression. And for those who maybe aren't as familiar, these emotions that come up, these things that are often bound in our bodies, like Sarah was saying, like the motion of twerking is literally somatically helping release things that are held in our bodies, emotions that are held in our bodies. And these containers to express, whether it's joy and sexiness and playfulness with our girlfriends and grief and rage, are so important, because they have to move and they have to be liberated for us to be free. And finding these safe spaces, and Sarah, you're an amazing facilitator and safe space holder. I just want to encourage everyone who might be listening, if you don't have a place to express that, whether it's with a girlfriend, in a living room one night, or perhaps it's an online container where you can, turn on your computer and be in the safety of your own room and move through some of these processes. It is so important to liberate these things that are bound inside of us so we can become the fullest expressions of who we are. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on for sure was this breathwork. It is so fun. I've done it several times now and it's so fun. And it's so cathartic because you do reach those layers and you don't even have to have a story, right? It's just like you reach these layers of rage or grief or crying, and then you move through it. And afterwards you're like, oh, I feel so much better.
Yes. And speaking of, you mentioned being bound, like these emotions being bound, shame is another huge one that comes up, and shame is held in the sacral chakra. So when we shake out that shame, we're twerking out the shame, we're even working with it, right? We're not shaming the shame. We're not judging the shame. We're actually inviting it in. And that is a part of the practice of Tantra, is allowing all parts and inviting all of these parts to express and have a place in the safety of the container. And so when we're expressing shame, that can literally look like curled up in a ball on the ground crying. And that's the part that wants to hide. That's the part that wants to stay silent. That's the part that doesn't want to be seen and heard. It wants to hide. And so when we allow our bodies to actually go into the form and shape that it wants to take, we're meeting that part where it's at and allowing it to express, even if just for 30 seconds or a minute. And then it shifts, because that is the nature of all things, is change. And so when we're allowing that energy to just be here, saying yes to it, giving it a little bit of permission and safety and love, then that is what allows that shame to shift. And we can shake it out, scream it out, twerk it out, laugh it out even, and allow ourselves to just be 5% more okay with our sexuality, with our embodied expression, and with who we really are.
I love that. And it's giving the spaces for those emotions to be seen, be witnessed, be held, as you're saying, because the more we try to suppress them, the more they're just going to sneak out sideways. And they're going to really start to affect all areas of our lives. Our relationships, our happiness, our joy. When you've got things that are bound, that are wanting to like pop up all the time, right? Like they need space to move. And when they can move, we get to I kind of feel it as being like bound, like a really tangled web of yarn or something, right? And so, and when we give it some space, it can loosen, and you can start to follow, and you can start to unwind until you actually get to the gift of yourself at the center. So I feel super appreciative. And I also, so we've talked about breathwork. I also want to talk about, because I love the fact that you and Rebecca run rage retreats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're so amazing and so needed to be given, again, these places where it is fully permission. Because we as individuals, we as a collective, we as a generation, there's rage in there. And when we can learn to feel it and fuel it, there's such transformation that can happen. So one, I'd love to just know, like, how did this come to be? How did you even get the idea of doing a rage retreat? And then like share with everyone, like, what happens in these spaces?
Well, here's the thing about rage. Women are conditioned to suppress their rage, but it's okay for us to feel sadness. Whereas men are conditioned to suppress their sadness, but it's okay for them to feel rage and anger. So we're seeing this flip-flop. And now, thank goddess, more men are accessing their sadness and grief and allowing themselves to feel and cry and allow their hearts to break open. And on the same coin, different side of the coin, the women are finally feeling their suppressed rage and anger. And so it's easy for us to access sadness and tears because that's socially acceptable. And so the sadness is often just the top layer, and underneath of that layer is a whole lot of rage and anger. And for men, it's the opposite, right? So there's anger that's masking the deep grief and sadness. And of course, this is a broad generalization for gender norms, and there's a whole spectrum of gender, but just generally speaking, this is the way we're conditioned. And I think that when women tap into this rage and anger, they're tapping into source. They're tapping into power. They're tapping into boundaries, their ability to finally speak their truth and say no. But we're so afraid of it. We're afraid to let that dragon out of its cage because we don't know what it's going to destroy. We don't know what kind of havoc it's going to wreak on our lives or what it's going to burn down. So we need to unleash the dragon in a space where it's safe to be unleashed and where we can give ourselves that permission and allowance. And also learn to work with the dragon, like ride the dragon, speak to it, connect with it, telepathy, connecting with that dragon essence, that part of you. And that's how we learn to contain the fire, because fire can be extremely destructive, but when contained can sustain life and cook food and warm our hands. And it's very helpful and supportive for our survival as a human species, working with fire. And so when we learn to cultivate our own fire, work with our own internal fire, we're learning that, yes, sometimes things do need to be burned down and destroyed so that we can start anew. This is where we connect with that Kali goddess energy of the creator and the destroyer, and learn that destruction can actually pave way for something new to be born. And we can learn to work with fire in a way that isn't always destructive. And it's a way that's constructive and can create healthy relational dynamics when we're able to speak our truth and advocate for ourselves and our needs and say no, and use our rage in a way that creates positive change and is a catalyst for positive change.
It's so good. I love that. I was telling someone recently, things in the news were happening and someone was getting upset, and I was like, good. I was like, because it's a marker that you care, right? It may be news to you, like, wow, I didn't realize I cared so much about this situation or about this topic or about this person until maybe what you're saying, a line gets crossed or a boundary gets overridden. And then it is our innate survival instinct to come up with that fire and go, no, right? Or not now, or not me, or whatever it is. And by being taught to suppress that, it just goes back into like how many boundaries have been overridden. And so learning, to your point, of harnessing that fire, and usually when something is at one end of the spectrum, it needs to kind of go to the other end in order to find a healthy balance. So what I feel like you're allowing the opportunity is a container to like go full spectrum, rage your face off, like to let everything that's in there come out, because it's been bottled up for so long. And I mean, we haven't touched on, but like it can cause actual dis-ease and disease in the body. There's all these inflammatory diseases and cancers and all these things from holding in our emotions, and rage being one of them.
Absolutely.
So areas that can fully express and move through and go big can help us find and maybe re-find our own alignment and our own truth and our own essence and our own, what do I stand for? What am I a yes for? What am I a no for? And what is the correct, in our internal, and it might change every time, but how do I do it without being burned or burning someone else? Someone once told me actually that I think baby cobras are more dangerous than adult cobras because they don't yet know how venomous they are. And So they haven't quite learned. So instead of like that, just like shock to stun, they can accidentally kill because they're like, boom, no. And so it feels a little bit like that, right? As we're like relearning how to access our rage.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's why it can feel so scary to touch some of these parts, and scary to even go there and go to a rage retreat or a rage ritual or a space where you know that there will be expressions of anger, because it's been weaponized. And usually we've been shown that anger is aggression. Mm-hmm. And so we equate anger and aggression, or anger and violence, because that's the way that anger has been expressed toward us, or perhaps we've even expressed our anger as aggression and violence toward others. And so we confuse the two, but anger is actually a neutral emotion, and it's supportive and useful, as we've been talking about. But aggression and violence are the distortions of when anger is not taken care of in a healthy way, and then it comes out sideways. Mm-hmm. So when we connect with our anger, not so much the aggression and violence, although that can be a part of it, like punching a pillow is an expression of aggression that is causing no harm to anyone, and hopefully not yourself. Although I do have a friend that broke her hand punching her couch pillows. So please, wow, be mindful of these practices.
Disclaimer.
She accidentally hit it on the wood part of the couch.
Yikes.
So yes, disclaimer, of course, we want to be mindful and careful when we're going into these practices. And Rebecca, my co-founder, and myself, we do put in a lot of safety protocols at these retreats, and we do our best to keep everyone safe, and there hasn't been any incidents. So when you are connecting with that anger, that holy fire within you, there's a reason why earlier I said, when we're connecting with our rage, we're connecting with God. We're connecting with Source, because that is the holy fire that's allowing us to stand up and speak and give life to what we care about, to protect the earth, to protect women and children, and to protect the sacred, protect our human and animal family, and to actually give a shit. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of spiritual bypass. There's a lot of head in the sand. There's a lot of, turning the other direction. And we can't do that anymore. I wish we could sometimes. I'm like, I just want to block it all out. Ignorance is bliss. Mm-hmm. But we're in a time where we can't. We constantly have access to the news and social media, and we're so energetically connected as humans that even if you try to go meditate on a mountaintop as a monk, you're still a human. And so you're still feeling and connected to this human family. I hang out with monks and nuns almost every day out in Escondido. And so they're still very much affected by what's going on. And they're also very much involved. They also do a lot of activism work and community service that people don't really know about. And so when we connect with our anger, our rage, especially as women, we're just inviting more parts of ourselves, specifically the more powerful ones, online.
I love the distinction between anger and aggression. I think that's really key, of being able to kind of discern and separate those two. And for people listening, you may have to be in the soup a little bit to be able to separate the ingredients sometimes. But it's very helpful to be able to understand the gifts and the distortions of the emotions of the things that are moving through. So, and I love how you said that's when we are connected to God. As you know, a lot of listeners in Mystic Bloom, we are on a faith exploration of kind of reconnecting to our own divine source and our own belief system. And I think through the body has been one of my biggest doorways into God and the divine. And I'm curious, knowing that you also are very into the somatics and reconnecting with the womb and with the body and with life force. How do you experience God? Do you use the word God? I know I use the word divine a lot. What is your relationship like with something higher?
I love that you asked this. I just love God so much. And God loves me so much. We just have such a beautiful relationship, and it has been a messy one. My relationship with God has evolved so much. I was raised Christian, and eventually when I got old enough in high school, my mother said, you don't have to go to church anymore if you don't want. It's your choice now. And I chose not to. Mm-hmm. And all throughout high school, throughout college, and then even a few years after college, I was so disconnected and so lost and partying and drinking and drugs and had no spiritual connection. I had no one to turn to, no one to pray to, no one to connect with other than my mom. And so as many of us do, we can sometimes project this like God-like figure onto our parents, especially when we're little ones. We're like, oh, mommy and daddy, they're gods, they're our everything. But when we carry that into adulthood, it becomes this false distortion and expectation that our parents should be perfect, or our parents need to meet all of our needs, or that we need to somehow be in obedience and servitude to our parents. And I think the obedience and servitude is a whole other aspect of religion and Christianity that maybe is for another time. But when I finally found my way back to God was through my spiritual exploration, connecting with spirit guides and angels and Mother Earth, connecting with my heart and my womb. And I was always trying to find these doorways into God. I'm like, okay, so what's real? Like, is it angels? Is it spirit guides? Is it God? Is it goddess? Is it the sun? Is it the earth? Is it like, what is it? What is the thing? And for me, it's all of it. Mm-hmm. It really is all of it. And that is the all that is. That is the I am that I am. Mm-hmm. So when I think of God, I think of all that is. And more recently, it's been really productive for me to re-invite God back in as a Holy Father. Because of my deep abandonment trauma and father wounding, I have been searching for a man to fill that void, to fill the void of God, really. And to fill the void of providership, of Holy Father, of the Father that encourages and supports and provides and loves. And I did not have that Father in a physical human body form, but I know that I can have that Father in spirit form. And so praying to that Holy Father, I'm like, wow, you really do show up for me. You give me everything I need. You open up doors. You close the wrong doors. You bring people into my life. You provide me with money. Like all of these blessings in my life that I'm really opening up to and receiving. I just thank God. And I thank the Holy Mother and Mary Magdalene and my spirit guides, my spirit team, my divine family, my ancestors, like all of it is, I believe we're all co-creating this. And I'm just so grateful to have reestablished that connection that was severed when I was 5. Wow. And to be able to come back home to, God as a father figure to me.
That's so beautiful. And you touched on a few things that I just for sure want to highlight. And one is that individuation stage, right? And I think that is so important in all levels of development, including spiritual development, is the individuation of, okay, I've been taught one thing, or I see that so-and-so wants me to do one thing, and maybe there's a little rebellious one. Maybe there's, I'm going to do it my own way, and it's important. That individuation stage in any level of development, whether it's a child or your spiritual development, is important to be able to go and find yourself and discover who you are and what you believe without anyone telling you. And then the other is, the father wound and the God wound are so intricately linked. They're so intricately linked. And I see it super often. And it's so beautiful that you've had this chance to really kind of look at your view of what you were doing with men in your relationship and your relationship to your father and your relationship to God. Because a lot of times that goes unnoticed. And I'll see a lot of women who are like either really angry with men and really angry with God. Right? And they don't realize that there's any kind of link there. But if you feel dropped by a father figure, whether it's a physical father figure or the God holy father figure, and you don't look at that, it's going to leak into a lot of areas of your life.
Yeah, I'm getting chills right now. Just, you're speaking to something that I think so many women struggle with. Mostly the anger toward men. Yes, that's kind of an obvious. But then what's really underneath of that is like, you abandoned me. You hurt me. You didn't give me what I wanted. You betrayed me. You disappointed me. And then how often do we project that onto God? All the times that we've prayed to God and we didn't get what we wanted. We felt betrayed. We felt maybe suppressed or diminished by God, because there's now a religion, many religions, that teach God as this smiting, judgmental man in the sky that's shaming you, and there's a lot of dogma around God that isn't truth,
right?
That's taught in a lot of churches and even scripture that's been translated in funky ways. And so to really get to God as a God that feels good in my body and in my truth is by connecting so deeply with my own heart and my body and my healing processes, rather than going to church or reading the Bible. And I'm not shaming that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I think there's a lot of beauty and healing that can come from that. But for me personally, I never found a church where I felt like I could be my full self and kind of be able to sift through some of the dogma. And part of that also has to do with my sexuality and bi. And so there's a lot of programming around, the LGBTQIA plus communities and Christianity. And luckily we're seeing more churches pop up that are more accepting of our queer community. But there's also still that underlying programming of like, husband and wife and honoring marriage and all of that. And so I'm really grateful that I can still have a connection with God beyond all of the dogma and the programming and the things that I'm supposed to do. And connecting with Mary Magdalene has also been a huge part of that. You did an incredible episode about the truth behind Mary Magdalene. So anyone who's listening, make sure you go back and listen to that one. I think it was one of your earlier episodes, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And that was, it streamed through because she has been such a force in my life as well, of like reclaiming the truth. And I feel like that's almost like a theme of our conversation, is this reclamation, right? Of our body, of our beliefs, of our definition of God, of our relationship with God, outside of what perhaps was laid down at a time of patriarchy and very masculine structure. And again, not making it wrong, it's just that was the time period and that's what it was. And almost as like we are becoming and growing, it's like we're not children anymore and we're not spiritual children anymore. When you're little, people do have to tell you, hold my hand when you cross the road. and you don't have to logically go into it. It's just what you're taught because it keeps you safe. You got to cross the road. As you get older, you're like, oh, I actually know I can look around. I can assess for myself and make this decision. And sometimes I believe in a lot of the religions, they're like, no, just hold my hand. And you're like, no, I'm a big girl now. Like, like you guys forgot why the hand holding started.
Yes.
It was because I was little and I couldn't assess, but now I can.
And then that's when the hand holding becomes not just a holding your hand, but a grasping of your hand and a control and a domination and wanting to manipulate and keep you kind of sucked into the programming.
Totally. Yeah. Because that's all they know. And that's how they know to keep things safe.
Yeah.
And there is an awakening happening right now, especially, I believe, in the feminine, where we are coming back online in our bodies. We're reconnecting to our wombs, to our hearts. We're expressing ourselves in different ways. And we are opening and saying, wait, like love is the point of this. Like it's love. And there isn't, my God isn't going to shame me for experiencing pleasure, for experiencing the pleasure in this body that I was born into on this planet, which brings me pleasure.
That God created this. God created this clitoris that has like 9,000 nerve endings, like 3 times the amount of the tip of a penis. And the clitoris's pretty much only job is just to make you feel good and have pleasure.
Right? Like we should be like, thank you, God.
Right? Like
pretty sure I want us to use that.
So why would something that feels so good be like made out to be wrong or bad?
Yeah. It's expanding beyond those stigmas and ideals that people a very long time ago that just didn't understand. And it's hard to control what you can't understand. And it was a time where everyone was searching for control. And so things were shut down. And what I love about these conversations that we're having now is that we get to just recognize them for what they are and expand beyond. We get to have our like grown-up woman faith in our grown-up woman bodies that, experience pleasure and delight and can dance in the sun and lay naked in the backyard and love every single second of it and not feel like there's a God who's shaming us for that.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, it's an exciting time, I think, right now in the world of being a woman and having these things offered, including like the things you're offering between breathwork and rage retreats. And even like your ecstatic dance. We did an ecstatic dance because Sarah's also a DJ, which is amazing. Her playlists are incredible.
Thank you.
The permissioning to just be in the body and expressing and being your full self in joy. It's like, yes, the world needs more of that.
Yeah. I think the more we recognize our bodies as sacred and as a temple space where we come home to worship here. It was funny. A girlfriend came over the other day and it was her first time in my house. And she was like, "Where's your altar? I just love looking at people's altars. Where's yours?" And I just said, "My body is my altar."
Oh my gosh, I love that.
All that I need. And I just have this like kind of open space where I can dance, and I have my yoga mat and a few items and a few books and a few oracle cards. I went through a really deep rebirthing process about 2 years ago during my Saturn return, and ended up getting rid of everything, selling everything, just complete purge, moving away, traveling, living nomadically. And in the past year and a half, I've been stabilizing, reintegrating, reintroducing, and really being mindful of, okay, what are the things I want to bring back into my space? And how can I just have the most intentional space where everything has a purpose, everything brings beauty, and to only bring items that can reciprocate with the earth. And so now I'm like getting my fresh roses, and using, connecting with the rose and the rose lineage as my altar, and really praying with my body. And what that looks like is breath work, movement, dance, vocal toning, and play. And those are the doorways into our truest selves and into God. Because when we suppress our emotions, we're suppressing God. When we suppress and diminish what we feel, we're diminishing the voice of God. We're diminishing that part of us that just wants to be heard, because there's a doorway into something new, and there's a doorway into a deeper truth.
Whew. Just let that land for a second. I love that. Yeah, we are living, breathing, whether you want to call it fragments or instruments or vessels or your word here, of God. And we're all in this ecosystem. And I love the intentionality of like, what else is in my ecosystem? And what am I continuing to fill myself with and feed myself with and surround myself with? And what am I choosing to move through and to let go and to release, to continue to come back to being the vessel, the clearest, most aligned, most joyful, most playful, most sexy, most pleasurable vessel. Which, I mean, gosh, if that was like my life's journey, I'd be like, I'm good. If every day, like, your job's just to find joy and release things that don't bring you joy. Got it.
I mean, we only get this one body in this lifetime, so we might as well learn to love it and enjoy it, and learn what it loves and what it doesn't love.
Yeah.
And that starts by being in our bodies and fully inhabiting our bodies, descending to the womb, listening, connecting, listening to symptoms, listening to the signals, all of the ways that our body whispers to us through pain and through pleasure, but mostly through pain.
Yeah.
And is sometimes screaming at us to take action, to say no, to speak a boundary, to speak our truth. And when we listen to those whispers, we're getting deeper in touch with who we really are and who we aren't.
Yeah. Yeah, the embodiment piece is so important. I think you were saying before about like going really high at the beginning of the podcast, talking about like the enlightenment and going high and, the transcendentalists and all these things, and the experience that we also have if we were a tree to grow really deep roots that soak up into the soil and into the water and like be in this earth and be in our bodies and form a relationship to these incredible vessels that without it, like, our soul wouldn't be able to be on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so to just like treasure and honor and learn and give ourselves that time in the space, I just believe is so important.
Mm-hmm. What helps you feel most connected to your body and the earth?
Being on the earth, for sure. Like, I just love being in nature. I'm always like, man, nature is incredible, and we are nature. It's like you see a flower, a succulent, and you're like, how the heck was this thing created? And it almost gets to be a mirror for us of like, look how intricate we are. That our heart is beating, our lungs are breathing, that my fingers can move, like all of these things that work in this miraculous way. So I think I've just been able to cultivate this deep love and deep appreciation for my body, for nature, knowing that my body is a part of nature. And it like sustains me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a beautiful remembrance. We are nature.
We are. It's so good. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. I would love if you could share how people can reach you, how they can work with you, your amazing, beautiful offerings, because you really do hold incredible containers for expression and for releasing and for learning about yourself and for liberation and for people to really feel held and witnessed throughout their journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I really received that feedback. So Rebecca and I are in the works of planning the next Rage retreat. We're currently looking at venues as we're looking to expand. And there is a wait list. So if you would like to sign up for the Rage retreat wait list, then you'll get updates and emails on when that will be and where that will be. So most likely in San Diego. The past two have been in San Diego, and we're going to continue that and also expand into some other locations as well. And then also I teach a weekly breathwork class at Gold Meditation in Encinitas, which is a fairly new meditation and wellness studio. They have a lot of breathwork classes and meditation. I also DJ ecstatic dance there and hosting some other events there soon as well. I think an Easter event coming up if you're listening before Easter. So lots of opportunities to connect in person here in San Diego. But if you're listening outside of San Diego and you want to connect with me, I also offer private coaching sessions over Zoom. I have a 3-month womb creatrix embodiment program, which is really juicy and healing and deep. We can go really deep in group work, but going in deep with the one-on-one work is just unparalleled.
Yeah, it's so beautiful and so important. And I'll put all of Sarah's information in the show notes so that she's easy to find and follow. Because it's been really beautiful also just seeing your journey and each new offering that comes out at different stages of your evolution. I'm excited to just keep following and be like, what's coming next?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually working on a book. I've been working on it for a few years, and it's now gaining a lot more momentum and it's coming together. So my goal is to launch that by March of next year. March of 2026.
Any teasers on what the book is on?
Yeah, I can give a little teaser. How to say no without sounding like a bitch.
Love it.
How to embody your boundaries. And how to really claim all aspects of sovereignty, your spiritual sovereignty, your emotional, physical, sexual, and financial sovereignty.
Ooh,
yeah,
love that.
Yeah, there's 6 types of sovereignty that I'll be hitting on. But yeah, that's all you get for now.
Okay. I'll come to the book launch party and learn the rest. Awesome. Well, yes, I'll put it all in the show notes. And just thank you so much again for being a part of this conversation and for everything that you do in the world. I am always so humbled and so in awe of all the incredible people in my life that are sharing their gifts and creating these big waves and these big ripples at a time when they're so needed. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really inspired by the way that you're using your voice and creating a platform for us to come together to have these conversations, especially because there was a time when these conversations would literally have us killed.
Thanks, Sarah. And what an honor it is to be alive at a time where we can speak and we have these conversations, which I hope to keep having more and more and more of. So until next time, thank you. Thank you for being here and tuning into Mystic Bloom. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe. And if you feel called, leave a rating or comment. It truly helps more people find this space. To be the first to know about Mystic Bloom offerings, invitations, and events, visit mysticbloom.co. That's .co like community, and enter your email to join the sanctuary. Until next time, may you enjoy your journey.